We'll get right into it with question 0. So Sam, what is your the 10-cent history of you and Root, and your biggest Root flex in your opinion?
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So my relationship with Root is pretty standard. Except it's not super standard actually, now that I think about it. I did not back the original like Root Kickstarter. I was on the original Vast Kickstarter, which was their previous game. And I remember seeing Root and being like, oh, interesting, but it's like a less asymmetric version of Vast. So whatever, it's a war game too. And I'm actually not super into war games usually.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up passing on the Kickstarter. Oh man, big mistake, because I was just watching videos of it after that. I was just like, oh my gosh, this game looks phenomenal. I don't know why I didn't back it on Kickstarter. And then it was like getting sold out everywhere. It was a really hard game
Right.
to get around that time. I remember I was at a local mall, and it's the mall that I actually don't even like going to. I don't remember what the reason why I was at this mall
It's the
for.
other mall.
Yeah, it's the other mall. It's like there's a couple of malls around me. This is the worst mall around me, and I was there. And I'm walking and I go into like the calendar shop, which is also kind of like doubles as a board game shop. And there is a single copy of Root, just one copy, just on the top of the shelf there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just like literally immediately bought it so quick. And I went home, just played it, just me and my wife, 2-player game of Root. We played like four times, and it was just pretty crazy. It was just the 2-player game, so I didn't really like
Right.
get the full experience yet. I ended up introducing it to my friends. We just all fell in love with the game. I'm sure you felt the same way when you first played it. It was just like learning these new factions one at a time was just special, and it just felt so different from everything else out there.
Right.
And it was great. I was like, this is the best game ever. So now, a little bit after that, because the game released in like 2018.
Mm-hmm.
My channel released around, was it the same year? I should know this. My channel my channel released 2 years ago, actually. Okay, so it was like a year after the game's release. I released my YouTube channel, which was strategy guides for Root, because
Right.
I had searched everywhere and could not find any strategy guides on the game. And so I was like, I'm just gonna make them. So I studied up, I played a ton, and just made like the first 6 videos on my channel. And the rest is history.
Dude,
Root was my favorite game. Love it. There
be
you
the
go.
change, man, that
Yep,
you
I
want to
know.
see.
I exactly. That's like my biggest like advice is like, hey, if you find something that you want,
Right.
just become that thing that you want to see. So I did it, and now boom. So
Dude,
Root created my channel.
that's awesome. I mean, the funny thing is your like reticence to get into Root is exactly my origin story too. Like when I first saw it, before we started filming, we were talking about I'm just gonna come out and say, like, open my or air out my dirty laundry. I have not played Vast. I would love to play it, but I am, in like the grand scheme of things, a more latecomer to leader games. And when I first saw Root, I was like, I don't know. And for whatever reason, I bounced off it, which makes no sense because there's a lot that I should like in it. I feel like I didn't give it an honest, college read. And that it wasn't until Riverfolk came out, actually. I missed the Kickstarter. When I saw stuff about Root, I was like, whatever. It's that game that I decided I didn't want. And then when Riverfolk came out, I was like, wait, what are these other 2 factions? And suddenly I was incredibly interested in it. And same thing though, even at that time, it was pretty hard to find copies.
So
And
hard.
I live in Minnesota, pretty close to like Leader HQ. And same thing, I figured out a spot in a mall. I like called them multiple times and they're like, yeah, dude, the 2 games you like you reserved, we're still reserving them. Come get them. And so I picked it up, and just the first couple games were a little rocky because I
Mhm.
just dove into 4-player games twice with 2 different groups, which is a bit of a trial by fire. But it just like completely opened my eyes to this game that and then when Underworld hit, and then the Clockwork expansion, which was same thing with your channel, I was so excited about these bots. I was like, let me see some video about like how these bots work or some let's plays. And I was like, I cannot find them. And so the Game Garage and Give Pause Hobby was built. But the same thing with, I was like, there has to be, with like the wittiness of the internet, there has to be a root flow chart somewhere out there, and I just like could not find one. And so that was kind of like my first foray. That was months before I made my first video. I made that flow chart of just like me, who was like baby root player, and I got it right enough. And I've been reminded of the spots where it's like people are like, actually, but it, you know, it kickstarted the whole my love of the game.
Yeah.
But that's not actually my flex. I brought a show and tell, Sam. My flex is that I have my rule book with Cole Worley and Kyle Farron's signatures.
Oh.
Yeah, and don't get too. I mean, it is pretty dope because
That's
I went
sick.
to an art show that Kyle had in the Twin Cities. But here's the killer. Is I got these two. I talked to Cole first, who was incredible, and I was coming there for Kyle Farron's signature, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you should definitely go talk to Kyle." And there's like a line to talk to him, and I'm just like, dude, does he not know that he's Cole Worley? And he was like, I mean, when I asked him, I was like, would do you think you would sign? He's like, oh, for sure. And he like signs it, and he goes like tells Kyle, he's like, hey, he's got a rule book, and I just like go in line, do that. On my way out from the whole show, where Fort and Oath, there are pictures from there, and I'm there with my wife, and I'm like, I don't know what these pictures are, and like galaxy brain now, but I'm leaving, and Patrick Leader is outside, and I clearly know who Patrick Leader is also, and we're just like leaving, and somehow, so I knew who he was talking with, and so I got roped in like kind of third wheel thing. And I told him, like, I was just like this like fanboy holding this thing, and Patrick's like, oh yeah, Leader Games is my company, and like, which I knew, and instead of me being like, oh cool, would you sign it too, me as like just starstruck idiot, I was just like, I know. like so I know, period. I know you're Patrick Leader. And we like then talked about something about weird existential internet personality and like some weirdness. And then we just left. And it was when I was driving home with my wife, I was like, why didn't I get Patrick Leader to sign it too? So hopefully in the after times we can fix that. But in the time being, 2 out of 3, as Meatloaf says, ain't bad.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I never gave a flex. I'm sorry. I didn't even.
No, there. I preempted you. I kind of like bump set for whatever your flex is at this point.
My flex is not as cool as your flex. It's gameplay related. I had a 21-point turn with Woodland Alliance, so that is my flex. I went from 11 points to plus 21. Which was like over 30, obviously. It was an insane game. Yeah, and it involved a favor, it involved a gold coin craft, it involved spreading of sympathy, and it involved moving and organizing. That was 21-point turn. Yeah, and it was filmed. I have it on film. I was gonna upload the gameplay, but
Pixar didn't have it, dude. See, and that's the great part about flex. It's not like it can be anything. It can, and that's exactly what I was thinking, like a dope turn in the game, or a signed rule book or whatever it may be.
The signed rule book is so cool though. I'm jealous of you. I want your flex more than I want my flex.
Can we trade flexes?
Yeah, can I trade it? I would love to.